What's up, internet friends, founders, and the Entrepreneur Curious? You've made it, and you're here. It's Venture Daily with me, Peter Saddington. What's up, guys? I hope you are having a wonderful Wednesday. I will give you a early morning mea culpa. Yesterday, for some reason, I was thinking that yesterday was Monday. I have no idea why this was. So if for those out there who are wondering, why were you talking about Tuesday like it was Monday, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, guys. Sometimes I get caught up and every day there's so much grind, there's so much work happening, and sometimes you just lose track of time, and especially, let's be intellectually honest, sometimes guys, when I don't leave, my office, when I don't leave my house, and just the day bleeds because I'm working 12-hour, 14-hour day, I kind of forget the days, guys. But in today's show, I hope you guys are having a wonderful hump day. Smash the like button, subscribe, let people know if you're out on the drive. Be safe out there, because I know we got lots of listeners who listen to us on the iTunes, on the iPods. The iPods, guys. Cha-ching. The iPods. Spotify or Google Play. So I hope you guys are out there safe. I got two articles that I want to cover today. The first is about diversity. We're hearing a lot more these days about diversity in the workplace. Now, I think that can be misconstrued quite easily when it comes to diversity of things that don't matter. What really matters is diversity of thought, a diversity of ideas. And so I'm intrigued to find out, because I haven't read this article just yet, I'm intrigued to find out what they have to say when it comes to diversity in the workplace. The second article that we're going to be covering today is a simple one. It's about data scientists finding 4 words and 1 emoji that might help you know if the individual you're talking to is a suicide risk. Ooh.
Nope.
Let's hope that's not the case. But you know what? This might be useful for anyone out there who texts with people, and if you see these 4 words come up in the emoji, maybe you might want to call, what is it, the suicide hotline? Yeah, you probably want to do that. That's in today's news bits. Oh, and by the way, those are the 2 news bits we're covering, but the final word for founders today is going to be about unfair advantage. And whether you have an unfair advantage. Let's talk about it a little bit, guys. That's in today's Venture Daily. So, why the business case for diversity isn't working? Well, workplaces and executive boardrooms should reflect the world's diversity, and lots of companies are using the so-called business case for diversity to instigate action. But popular as it may be, it's a failed strategy. Diversity, a failed strategy? Maybe they're focusing on the wrong aspects of diversity. Maybe that's what it's all about. You've likely heard a variation of argument that companies with more diverse staffs produce better results for shareholders or make decisions better than their homogeneous counterparts. Unsurprisingly, you can read this logic trumpeted in the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times, but lately, even non-governmental organizations such as Oxfam have been championing equality for its business value. Equality, not diversity? But what's puzzling about what everyone's obsession with the business case logic is that it's not working. The 2020 Global Gender Gap reported by the World Economic Forum shows that at the current rate of progress, Europe won't reach gender parity for 50 years, and it will take 100 to 150 years in North America. I see. I know what they're talking about. When they're talking about diversity, they're talking about sex, race, and all the things that don't really matter. Is this controversial? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what meat suit that people are in. It doesn't really matter. Let's be honest. It doesn't matter what meat suit you're in, what you look like. That diversity must be up here. And that, if anything already in this article, that might be the problem, is they're focusing on the outside. What really matters is what's up here, guys. We are even further behind on achieving racial equality. There you go, guys. They're focusing on the wrong things. Studies show that rates of hiring discrimination against African Americans haven't declined in 25 years. Now, I don't disagree with this, but when it comes to hiring for diversity, we shouldn't hire for skin color or sex. we should hire for thought and whether those individuals can actually provide value in the knowledge-based economy. Corporate leaders would be better served if they stopped trying to justify diversity with profit margins and stock charts, a mentality that can ultimately hurt the very groups these policies are meant to help. More on that in a moment. But instead, embrace diversity because it is the right thing to do. I agree. I completely agree that it's the right thing to do, but we have to be focusing on the right facets or ideas or parts of diversity. So what are the origins of the business case for diversity? Well, the idea that corporations have to justify their diversity programs economically is a relatively new phenomenon. Women and people of color have long been excluded from corporate America. This is true. In the 1960s to the 1970s, civil rights and social justice movements set about trying to change that. At the time, help wanted ads often specified that certain jobs were only for men. That could make sense. The job ads targeted to women, secretarial roles, and the like might put a requirement that women applicants be attractive. I think I've seen some of those in the past. Similarly, in 1970, only 25 African American men were vice president roles in major corporations. Amid pressure from civil rights and women's liberation movements, companies started integrating their workforces. That's a good thing. Federal equality opportunity laws got the ball rolling, notes Harvard professor Frank Dobbin in his book, Inventing Equal Opportunity. The Kennedy administration, for example, mandated affirmative action to end discrimination in hiring against African Americans. The mandate got later reinforcement from the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Pioneering women and people of color still faced bias and prejudice, but businesses were forced to comply. Throughout much of the 1980s, President Ronald Reagan's administration actively sought to end affirmative action, arguing that diversity undermined meritocracy. Ooh, not that we want to get any political here, guys, but I tell you, I'm a big fan of meritocracy. Earn your wage, earn your keep, prove that you can provide value, rather than just hiring based on skin color and sex. I know it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in today's world, but I still think that matters. If you disagree with me, that's okay. Leave a comment below, guys. The theme has been echoed by President George W. Bush with his comments about the soft bigotry of low expectations, and more recently by James Damore in his now infamous screed, Google's ideological echo chamber, which subsequently got him fired. Hiring women engineers, to his way of thinking, was somehow undermining quality. I think he probably looked at it the wrong way. It's not that hiring women was undermining quality. It's making sure that the people you hire, regardless of they're men or women, are of the top-notch mental qualities that you really care about anyway. In the face of these attacks, those seeking to create equal opportunity for people of all races and genders turn to business case rationalizations. Now I see the problem. They're trying to create business case rationalizations for skin color and sex. Probably not the best way to go. So for the first business case, the business case for diversity arose first late in the 1980s as a coping strategy for attacks on social justice action. But what people fail to recognize is that the current system is actually an affirmative action program for those already in positions of privilege. Read, straight white men. Well, this is from... Why we always got to be hating on the straight white men, guys? Why is that a thing these days? Take the recent study of Harvard undergraduates, which showed that just 43% of white students were admitted because of legacy or donations, but only 26% of them would have made the cut based on grades or other indicators of merit. On the other hand, research on quotas shows that such targets tend to increase quality by giving highly qualified women and people of color a chance and eliminating unfair advantages that less qualified straight white men have had. Is it about giving people a chance, or as a business, is it more important to hire people that will help your bottom line? This whole idea about forcing quotas is a problem to me. And now this is my opinion on the floor here. And of course I could be wrong, but hiring to fill up a quota ensures that you hire, in many cases, lower talent or talent that doesn't have the skills to pay the bills. And so I just find this to be problematic. Quotas of any kind. Yeah, I completely concede the fact that, yes, business is unfair. But that's kind of the nature of business. If you're a business owner, don't you want to make money? Let's go back to the basics. The only reason why anybody goes into business is to make money, period. And so if that is the case, that you are going into business to make money, you are going to make the best decisions you can to ensure that the people that you hire are the best top tier mentally, so that they can help you provide value in your product or service. Now, in many cases, I don't think most business owners even consider skin color or sex as part of the equation. Proponents of the whole diversity issue would say, well, because they're X, they can't see the value in Y. I don't know if that's necessarily true. This is one of those conundrums that is going to be hard to solve. But at the end of the day, I believe that any type of mandated quotas probably are going to hurt more than help. Actually, in my opinion, they have hurt. Let me know in the comments below if you disagree. Yet people are still hell-bent on making the business case for diversity, even though it doesn't really work on either side, in my opinion. One of the concerns of this author is that they make false promises. Take McKinsey & Co.'s claim that improving women's economic inclusion could add $12 trillion or more to global GDP. That's a lot of money, and the impetus for making the calculation is to motivate more concrete progress. But this claim is misleading and potentially damaging to the cause. First, that number doesn't consider the following. Will jobs be available? Will women be paid as equal levels as men? Who will do the lower paying jobs if women move into higher paying sectors? There's lots of evidence that even unemployed men won't go into relatively well paid nursing because they think it's women's work. Where did you find that? Will women be able to work as many hours on average as men given the gendered expectations for those responsible for care work outside the home? Or will do the child care, elder, or other work for households if women work for pay? So what's the result? We are highly unlikely to see these promised trillions, and such figures may lead to disillusionment and diversity efforts. But the question I have to ask is, why are we forcing these expectations on people, on women? Why aren't they allowed to make their own decisions with their own lifestyle choices, whether they want to work or not? The same concerns about false promises exist in the organizational level as well. To be sure, there is plenty of evidence that diversity is associated with more innovation and better decision making, 100%, if it's left at the brain level. But it's not automatic. The evidence of positive impact on women on boards, for example, is equivocal at best, even though it's worth noting that adding women to boards doesn't decrease performance either. As the late great Professor Kathy Phillips of Columbia University has shown, diversity also creates friction, just as it breaks down groupthink. I agree, 100%. One of the organizations that invest heavily in building their inclusion muscles are going to reap the benefits of diversity. What this says about gaining the benefits of diversity also requires serious investment in organizational transformation. Well, there's not a lot of action happening right now. So why doesn't the business case work? Well, recent research suggests that what's required for transformational action is a moral and legal case. Ooh, we're going into the gray area of morals. The business case, because it is based on economic logic, undermines moral arguments and weakens resolve to make anything other than incremental change. Indeed, experiments show that making the business case for diversity can increase bias against diverse groups, where the legal case can inhibit bias and increase equitable behavior. I don't know if I just agree with that. The business case for diversity also provokes people to focus more on economic than equality-based metrics of success. As a consequence, where there are downturns in organizational performance, believers in the business case are more likely to see diversity efforts as an ineffective and to support dropping the organization's investment in diversity programs. Pamela Newkirk points out in her new book, Diversity, Inc., The Failed Promise of a Billion-Dollar Business, that the main beneficiary of the business case for diversity so far has what we might call the inclusion industrial complex. Consulting firms and diversity and inclusion professionals who can profit from putting diversity management programs in place. Wasn't that always going to happen, though, guys? Is that once you create these operating standards of, hey, we have to have this type of diversity, we have to have this type of people in our companies, then suddenly leeches come out of the woodworks, and suddenly there are fully vice presidents, directors of diversity. Like, wow. Now, you might say, well, maybe companies need these directors of diversity. Maybe they didn't. Maybe the director of diversity is just a hawker of a philosophy or a hawker of a worldview and coming in and saying, I need to change this entire organization to fit my worldview, to mold it and shape it like me, because I believe that because this organization is 80% male, that it needs to be 50% male. And so maybe what you're missing here, author, maybe what you're missing is that these people who go into these positions to hawk and force diversity down the throats of the corporate employees there, maybe they're the problem. So are we hurting those we are making the case for? I think so. Actually, I think this article probably does a pretty big disservice to diversity. The other reasons the business case doesn't work is that it hurts those the case is designed to help. Women or racial minorities who are supposed beneficiaries of the business case for diversity may experience negative consequences. Makes sense whenever you force things down people's throats. The latest experiments have found that exposure to an organization's business case for diversity decreased as a sense of belonging to that organization for women and members of the LGBTQ community, which is then associated with lower desire to join the lower performance on the job. The business case language has a way of making people feel othered and devalued. Well, whenever you create segments based on race and sex, you're always going to create these caverns of divide. It's pretty simple in my mind. What am I missing here, guys? Even more insidiously, the presence of diversity politics tends to make up the majority groups feel like the organization is doing its part, which then legitimizes the status quo. I mean, if you hired a director of diversity, shouldn't everyone in the company feel like we're trying to do our best? But I guess this isn't enough to this author. While creating such roles as chief inclusion officers or directors of diversity, there you go right there, guys. Directors of diversity and inclusion can drive action by giving a point person a mandate to make change. There you go, forcing it down people's throats. It also risks disengaging everyone in the organization because they figure someone else has diversity covered. Well, that's what you would assume. We've hired for that position, so he or she's got it covered. So what's next? You can't win when it comes to the case of diversity. This is my opinion here. You just can't win. So what are we to do? If the business case isn't working, what other arrows do we have in our quiver? The answer is taking principled action. Ooh, principles. Ooh, let's go to principles here, guys. Forget the data. Go on principles. You're a bad person if you're not being diverse. Relying on the business case to motivate the kinds of transformations we need to achieve social and economic inclusion will only ever lead to incremental change. We need instead to set quotas. Oof, it's like communism right there. Quotas and return to affirmative action programs, or said differently, eliminate the currently unfair systems that dominate groups. We also need to transform work practices to make people of all kinds feel that they can do their best work. This is the only way we can fully achieve a true level of a playing field. Increasingly, companies are taking these kinds of principled stances. Salesforce has invested millions in analyzing wages and closing the gender pay gap. Many companies took a stand in North Carolina against the bathroom bills that discriminate against transgendered people. Microsoft eliminated stack ranking, which amplified bias against women's advancement. Should we give up on the business case? Well, it is worth noting that one of the reasons we don't yet have compelling evidence about economic impact of diversity is that we haven't truly moved to inclusion and belonging. Diversity by itself will not produce the benefits that companies and policymakers wish to achieve. My sense is that by taking principled action, we will find a myriad of ways that more diverse workplaces benefit companies and society. Said differently, we will eventually arrive at the business case. We just can't start there. Well, as you can probably imagine, guys, I completely disagree with this article's author, and the reason is simple. She is coming from the wrong place. She believes that we should have quotas. She believes that we should go back to standards and practices that are forced down companies' throats to include people of different skin colors and different sex and race and different sexual orientation, if that matters. I find that these types of blowhards who write these articles aren't actually. They're more projecting their own insecurities, and they're more projecting their own non-experience in actually running a business. Because if they actually ran a business, and I can only speak from my own experience of building several businesses and several startups, is that when I hire for the brain. I hire based on network recommendations, and I never ask what sex or race they are. I just say, hey, look, I'm looking for XYZ developer, I'm looking for an operations manager, or I'm looking for an analyst, or I'm looking for a BD. Please help me find if you know someone that's great, let me know. And it doesn't matter if they're white, black, brown, yellow, red, or green, right? And so as a business owner, I can tell you that I've never hired based on any other diversity issue other than, hey, is this person going to do an excellent job? Are they going to challenge us as leaders to improve? Are they going to help us create a great product and service? And the fourth one, which is the most important, am I going to have fun working with this person? And so when it comes to all these things that don't matter, and I say that lightly because obviously I'm YouTube and you know how comments can come back and bite you, but I think, in my opinion, if you look at let's look at my last company. My last company, we had Asians, we had white males, and we had women. Okay. I mean, we pretty much had everything you kind of need to be accepted in the diversity world. But none of these people that we hired was based on anything but the brains. And so I wonder if once again articles like this are actually doing more damage because it's forcing people to think in what I believe is the wrong way, which is let's focus on the sex, let's focus on the race and the things, in my opinion, that don't really matter when it comes to a business owner. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Am I wrong? Am I completely off base? Let me know. Let's go on to our last news article for today. Data scientists have identified 4 words and 1 emoji that signal someone is a suicide risk. This is pretty good. This is not good, but this is good for us to know. A new report from Crisis Text Line, a text-based suicide hotline, highlights the key words that indicate a person is at high risk of suicide and they're not what you would think. America is suffering from a rise in suicide. In 2018, over 48,000 people died of suicide, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Crisis hotlines and text lines have been an opportunity to step in when someone is having a moment of crisis and give them hope. Since launching in 2013, Crisis Text Line has fielded 129 million messages. When we say to people, guess what our high-risk words are, most people say help, or sad, or desperate. They say words that are about the awful feeling, says Nancy Lubin, who founded the Crisis Text Line. But actually, the words you should look for are the words that are in the mode of attempting this terrible thing. So what are the words that tell suicide crisis workers that a person is in deep need of help? Excedrin, ibuprofens, drugs, 800 milligrams, and most of all, the pill emoji. These words, according to Lubin, show that the person has moved past thinking about suicide to planning it and potentially carrying it out. Crisis Text Line data scientists came up with the list using an algorithm. Technology allowed them to bypass the human instinct to focus on more emotional cues like depressed, sad, or even suicide. The algorithm picked out the words that preceded an escalation. With this list of words, the technology can surface the most at-risk texters and move them to the front of the line, the same way hospitals treat the more severe cases first. Once a crisis text line counselor connects with someone, they work with them to pull back and develop a safety plan in case they find themselves feeling suicidal in the future. Through the algorithm, the organization has been able to prioritize 86% of the highest risk individuals. In less than 1% of cases, counselors have had to call emergency services to intervene. Previously, the organization had used a different list of words, cobbled together from research and academic articles to organize cases. Under the old model, Crisis Text Line was identifying about 50% of the people who needed immediate intervention. Quote, having an algorithm like this is the difference between life and death, says Lubin. The words highlighted in this story were first published in a report from the Crisis Text Line called Everybody Hurts, the State of Mental Health in 2020. Probably a book maybe worth picking up if you're interested. In addition to showcasing the words it uses to seek out the most in need of help, the report details the mental health statistics for all 50 states. The organization is hoping that researchers and academics will use the data to dig deeper into what's causing depression and anxiety in the region. If you or someone you know is in emotional distress, contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK or text 741 to text crisis line. Well, that's encouraging, guys. That's an encouraging article, and I wanted to read that to you guys because I've been affected, let's just say, by in my family with this idea. And these types of services are really powerful. So I hope that anyone out there who's dealt with this or might have friends who are using words like, ibuprofen, Tylenol, 800 milligrams, or the emoji, the pill, you'll know who to call and you'll know who to look out for so that you can help these people in their moments of stress and duress. That's it for today, guys, in Venture Daily. Venture Daily News Bits, guys. Let's go on to the final word for founders. This is going to be a good one.
Did you know that there's even more value than just audio or video? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at VC Hunting, and make sure to sign up for the VC Hunting newsletter, where you'll be able to get weekly news on venture capital, startups, founder stories, and the occasional wisdom extracted from Peter's brain. Go to vchunting.com to sign up. And now, back to the episode.
Well, guys, in today's final word for founders, I want to talk about an idea that was brought up in a recent interview that I had with Jake Kapoor from Launch Capital. He gave me a great quote from one of his mentors, Arjun Chopra, who he met when he was out in San Francisco. Arjun Chopra works for the venture capital firm Floodgate. And he was asking him questions around, what he should do. He's investing in a lot of different startups, but they're all over the place. And what he wanted to do is figure out what his thesis was, where his focus for investment was. And so he asked Arjun, he said, what do I need to be? What do I need to do to get where Arjun is? And Arjun Chopra gave him a great quote, which I'm going to say today, which I've heard variations of, but it's just a powerful quote for founders to remember. The quote is simply this: everyone is merely looking for their unfair advantage. Find your unfair advantage and everything else will work out. I'm going to repeat that. Find your unfair advantage. Once you find your unfair advantage, well, everything else is going to just work out. I believe this 100%, guys. Absolutely. This is a moneymaker of an idea. Think about it. What is your unfair advantage? If you're building a startup or a side hustle, or you're building a new project, or you're founding a company, what is the unfair advantage that you distinctly have? Forget the market for a second. Forget the customers. Forget the users. What specifically about you is an unfair advantage that you have over anyone else that might execute on an idea similar to yours? That is such a powerful idea. Let me give you an example. One of the things that I know, and this is really exciting to me, as Jay was relating this story to me, these ideas were bubbling up in my mind, is that my unfair advantage when it comes to building my future venture fund is that my future venture fund, what part of the thesis is going to be focusing on community tools, or founders with communities, or founders with the 3 Ps. Founders with personality, a plan, and perseverance, meaning that they have an opportunity to really grow a community around them. Do they have that personality that shines? And so with my venture fund, with the thesis of focusing on community tools, founders with communities, or founders with personalities, well, what's my unique unfair advantage? Well, it's simply this. I've been building communities for over 15 years. I've built communities in several startups. The first one was my Agile startup. It took me 9 years. I built a wonderful community online through blogging and Twitter. Those are the systems that I used at the time, mostly Hootsuite for Twitter. The second one that I built was VinWiki. We have over 300,000 active users on our application, and we have over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. We have over 4,000 posts that are posted by our users every day, and we are growing by over 400 users per day. Amazing, right? So great success, guys. Great success. Yay. The third The third community I built was when I was building cryptocurrency apps, and I built 6, and the 7th one was venture funded. We had an active community, over 2,000 people that were constantly engaged with what we were doing and giving us feedback. You see, my unfair advantage when it comes to building my venture capital fund is I've built communities. I've built communities for over a decade, and I know what it takes to build a great community. That's my unfair advantage. And that's why I'm so excited about building a venture fund focused on what I'm already good at, number one, but number two, I'm already experienced at. And so consider your experiences. Consider what you're good at. Consider your life history. What unfair and unique advantage do you have that can put you above the rest? Think about it today. Thanks, guys, for being with me on today's Venture Daily. As you can probably see, for those out there, I'm still experimenting on my way to connect with my community here. And so what I've kind of figured out is that one of the best ways for me to connect in this current phase of life that I'm in is to read the news to you guys, give color commentary, and then give helpful final thoughts for founders, because that really is going to be a big target market for me as I build my venture fund. I want to bring the entrepreneurs, founders, the entre-pro curious to me, because I want to help serve them with my venture fund, and maybe even in the future, obviously, if we're going to be a venture fund, be passing out that money to support you and invest in your idea. So you see that I'm experimenting with ways to connect with you guys. I'm thinking that this is going to probably be the best way for now. Do the news, a couple news clips, and then give you a personal statement from me, especially for founders and the entre-pro curious. Let me know your comments below. Let me know what your unfair advantage is, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.